tobacco, because many of our members are from the developing world and they don't go close to tobacco. So it's fantastic to have everyone here. But as I said in my WhatsApp earlier today, this is not really about tobacco. It's about, I know there's a wealth of experience in this room, and hopefully we can have a great discussion. But the first discussion is going to be panel discussion, and then we'll open it up, and we can all get together and come up with some good ideas. So maybe the panel join us here at the front, and we can make a start. So whilst everyone's coming down, I'll just go through the bios so that you know who we're talking to. Who will be on the panel. So here we have Cleopas. He's from Kutsaga Tobacco Research Board. He's a specialist in pest and disease diagnostics and the development of biocontrol agents and IPM, integrated pest management. A strong proponent of sustainable agriculture. His current research interests are in smallholder farmer agroforestry, afforestation, and conservation agriculture. Also of interest to Cleopas are pest and disease monitoring and modeling, disease screening in alternative crops. And he's been with Kutsaga for 15 years. So welcome, Cleopas.
Thank you.
Casper is from Zimbabwe Tobacco Association, ZTA. He's initially studied at Blackford, and then before moving on to Zimbabwe Institute of Management, Women's University in Africa, with qualifications such as diploma in tobacco culture, another diploma in business admin, and a master's in business admin. He is currently a board member of FPT, which is the Farmers Development Trust. It's great to have Rudo here. I think many are familiar with Rudo. She emphasizes on her bio that her first and foremost and primary interest are her children. She's a mother. And that's really the focus. But having said that, she has 23 years experience in business, having started a career as her father's assistant in the Boca Group, which is a third generation family business with interests in, gosh, there's a long list here, including real estate, construction, mining, financial services, commodity exchange, et cetera, et cetera. So she started that when she was 20. Since reopening of the tobacco exchange, Rudo established the Boca Growers Forum in 2011, which focuses on the empowerment of farmers by relevantly informing and educating the farming community on good agricultural practice, with focus on encouraging diversification in agriculture. So Rudo, I met her some years ago when we had an interest in chia. Rudo, I think, was the co-founder of Zimbabwe Chia Growers, and that's who she is representing today. So we're keen to learn how that's been going, Rudo. She also is a very strong proponent of women empowerment. I think not only in agriculture, but generally in Zimbabwe. Yeah, having fought with inheritance rules and that sort of thing at some stage. I think we're missing.
We're missing Casper.
Casper, okay. So Robert is with Tobacco Industry and Marketing Board. He carries 8 years of industry working experience, 5 of which are on agricultural marketing development and international trade. He holds a diploma in customs legislation and procedure, BSc Agriculture in crop science, and MSc Agricultural Management, and several course certifications. Currently enrolled in business strategy with Harvard Business School online. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think, yes. Yes, okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Barbara. So let me do this again. So we have Dr. Cleopas Chinea from Kutsaga. We have Rudo Boca. Rudo, sorry to say that last name. You'll never spell it anyway. And then we have Robert Usukutsa from TINB.
I'm a student.
Hmm?
I'm Barbara's student,
And he was your student.
former student.
Yes. So I wonder if we can just get to know each other by doing a round of you guys of self-introductions, just name and which organization you're representing. Maybe we can start with Sharon.
Okay. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Nubu, General Manager, Chiagro, Zimbabwe. I'm here with the Boca. Afternoon.
Great. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Karen Musaba. I'm from the Zimbabwe Industry White Public Company.
Hi everyone, Kumbirai Matieva is my name, Tobacco Research Board. I'm also here with Dr. Chimo.
So Kumbarai was going to be stepping in and out. They're sort of a pair, but we didn't really have enough space. Assuming Casper's coming. So it's an.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edson Magaisa. I am representing Minerva Guidance.
Hi guys, my name is Sonia and I'm a small scale farmer.
My name is Saida from Jamaica and I'm the director of Unison Complex distributor of organic biostimulators. My name is Gietta and I am the founder of Mutual London.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Elio Tagaisa from Leeds. Good from Leeds.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keyboard. I'm an agronomist. Representing Chiagro Zimbabwe.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jane. That's your feedback. I'm Chiagro Zimbabwe.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Adoration, representing Chiagro with Zimbabwe.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon Zone. I'm here with Chiagro and
Afternoon, my name is Brighton Shparosha. I'm this Chief.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave from Charlie. I'm the stage.
Name Barbara Monstall, retired now, but was with Cropside QC. Hi everyone, Sandy Roberts. I sit on the MLA committee.
I am James Carnegie, agribusiness consultant.
John Wild, National Test Seeds.
I'm Paul Kudapache. I'm with CABS.
Hi everyone, my name is Caroline. I am here with government. We are from Zimbabwe Trust Microfinance. We help farmers, tobacco farmers at every stage of tobacco growing. We want to help you to get loans. I know most of you here work with tobacco farmers. They might need help for whatever reason. We're here to give them loans for them to have as well. I don't know. Anything, any reason that they need loans, we're here for that. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Mtoka, representing the Trust Microfinance.
Thank you, Zambuka. And a few latecomers just came in. Please introduce yourselves.
Well, my name is Masha Tadela, and I'm an economist from Zimbabwe.
Okay, is that everyone? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Kanyikani Tonderai, economist from the Zimbabwe Farmers Union.
Great. Okay.
Hi everyone. I'm Matarusi. I'm from ZFU.
Great. It's great to have ZFU strongly represented here. Rudo, maybe you can explain the display that we have there.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. I take every opportunity to introduce or talk about chia to Zimbabwe and scenarios like this. So thank you very much, Michael. So the chia team that you see sitting over there is displaying presentations coming out of our R&D and what we've been able to produce since we commenced the project in 2017. We have the chia seed itself, which is the core at the moment, which is representing about 80% of our operations and the work that we're doing with the various farmers that we've connected to. I talked about R&D. You've got oil in the tubes, and then we have the cake, which is the byproduct from the oil extraction, and that's what you have displayed there. You also have a blended flour of the chia cake mixed with a typical flour base. The reason why we're sharing this is yes, R&D is going on, but chia has a tremendous nutritional value or components of ingredients which are critical towards our food fortification in Zimbabwe. I think in 2016, our government mentioned that all food fortification, a lot more efforts needs to be done coming from Zimbabwe as opposed to us importing our fortification components. So that's pretty much what you have there. So we have the seed, we have the cake, and we have the oil. The oil as extracted, we're still trying to really figure out what our extraction rate is. It's been ranging from 26 to 32%. And the reason why we don't want to throw it away is because the chia, for it to be relevant from Zimbabwe to the export market, we have a certification and a global gap situation which we need to comply to. And until then, we can't say we're not going to produce the chia because our farmers are not certified global gap. So we're saying produce it. What is not considered export quota organic or certified, we then extract for the oil. So that's pretty much what we've got in that corner. Please, when you have time, have a look, see for those that are yet to know chia and understand chia. Next time when you see it in the supermarket, it's coming also from us, from Zimbabwe. Don't worry about only eating where it's imported. It is now being produced in Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Thanks, Rudy. So Robert is representing TIMB. What is the interest of TIMB? In fact, if we look at your title, you're all to do with looking at alternatives.
Yep.
And to me, that's it really shows the TIMB is putting the money where the mouth is to actually have a post of somebody looking into this. But maybe you can just explain briefly what is TIMB's interest in alternatives, maybe a bit of background.
Okay. Firstly, TIMB traditionally we are known as an icon of excellence in the production and marketing of tobacco. But early last year, TIMB rebranded. But it rebranded after the promulgation of the Tobacco Value Chain Transformation Plan, which is informing all the activities to do with alternative crops in the industry. So now TIMB transformed into for livelihoods for sustainability. So we shifted from being an icon of excellence in production and marketing to fostering sustainability in tobacco production and also encouraging the improvement of livelihoods amongst our tobacco farmers. So the issue of diversification of alternative crops falls under the cluster of sustainability. We're trying to enhance sustainable tobacco production. This is not only a call on the profitability or viability of tobacco farming, but also on the aspect of tobacco markets, because the markets are also demanding that tobacco production has to be sustainable. So when you look at sustainability, we are looking at so many components. You may think of labor issues, you may think of economic sustainability, you can think of governance, you can think of any other things. But you can see that the diversification issue forms part of that sustainability component. And we are mandated by the Tobacco Value Chain Transformation Plan, which was actually approved by Cabinet, to promote the production of alternative crops and increase their contribution to farmers' household income. So that's basically why we are much interested now in alternative crops production, because we are the industry leader, we regulate the industry. So we think that if we can lead that, that can actually bring about the change that we desire. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Robert.
Yeah, sure.
And then moving over to Cleopas, Kutsaga, I think I heard you mention earlier, has been going since 1936.
Sure.
That's an awful lot of research in tobacco.
Sure.
But how long has the sort of look into diversification been going on for?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Michael, once again. So, in terms of tobacco, we go way back 1936. So we are a self-sustaining center of excellence regarding tobacco. Our mandate has basically been tobacco all this time, research on any kind on tobacco, from germplasm development to agronomy, pest and disease, and technologies around it. But most recently, the ministry has given us a new mandate as a 2021. Our new mandate includes, amongst other things, research on tobacco alternatives and alternates. So we assist with that. It's already been indicated by my colleague here. We are working in the tobacco value chain transformation strategy. We are fitting in there on the research aspects because the expertise is already there. It's tried and tested. Secondly, we've also been mandated to establish and harness technologies around industrial applications. So we've already started working on biopharmaceuticals, vaccines. We've already started work on microbial research, microbial agents that can be used in medicine, in agriculture, and so forth. We also mandated to look at bioinformatics and data research. We already have work going around that area. And we are also working on self-sufficiency in terms of the horticultural recovery plan. So we are into potatoes now. We are in the value chain regarding potatoes. We've already been involved in sweet potato, as you may know. In the past year alone, we've chained around 3,000 seedlings of sweet potatoes. We are involved in horticulture. We are churning out seedlings to farmers. So we have our mandate has been expanded recently, and so we are interested in terms of the tobacco value chain transformation strategy and sustainable tobacco production. Thank you.
Thanks, Cleopas. So, just staying with you, why is it then the government has given you this mandate to look at alternatives? What are the reasons behind us looking at alternative crops? And if I hear of pronouncements from government, they're saying, on the one hand, we are boosting tobacco production.
Yes.
But on the other hand, we are looking at alternatives. It seems that there seems to be a slight difference there.
All right. So first of all, I need to emphasize that tobacco remains a very important crop for Zimbabwe in terms of its contribution to the GDP of Zimbabwe and livelihoods in general. So it's a very important crop, and that's why you see there is growth in that area. But there's been growing issues around tobacco. The first one being a decline in demand globally. There's been around 3 to 5% decline in demand globally, although we've seen an increase in other markets such as the Middle East and Asian countries. There's been growth in that area. So whatever we're increasing is aimed for those particular areas. But we've also seen viability issues around tobacco. So cost of production has been going up. So those are threats around tobacco. There is the WHO FCTC, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. So there's a growing body, a global body, particularly from the World Health Organization, that is looking at controlling tobacco. So it is a threat to the tobacco crop itself. Also, there are sustainability issues, talk of deforestation, talk of child labor and forced labor, the use of crop protection agents around tobacco. So the push has been to look at alternatives. What could come in as an alternative to tobacco? What could come in as an alternative between tobacco crops as we gradually move towards sustainable farming systems? So we are also vested in diversification along these lines of alternatives and alternates.
Great, thank you. So maybe over to you, Robert. So if we're looking at alternatives, alternative crops, what would be the main characteristic of a crop that could maybe replace tobacco?
Yeah, the first thing is we need to understand is tobacco is mainly grown in Zimbabwe as an export crop. Because if you look at it, more than less than 5% of the total crop that is produced in Zimbabwe is consumed locally, and the rest is exported. So when you're looking at alternative crops, we are looking at something that is firstly exportable, that can command some significant export value. We are also looking at something that is not directly competing with tobacco. You mentioned very well when you said the government is pushing for an increase in production of tobacco, while we are also pushing for increase in alternative crop production. If you look at it, there's the merchants currently, they're actually scrambling for the existing tobacco, regardless of it being of very high volumes. Last year, we produced around 211 million kilograms, and they scrambled for that 211 million. They're still scrambling. So that was the basis for government to say, let's push to 300 million kilograms because of the increase in demand for Zimbabwe flavor amongst them, the tobacco markets. So we need the alternative to be exportable. We need the alternative to be compatible with tobacco systems, because we are saying farmers cannot be weaned off tobacco completely like now, because of the obvious issues to do with lack of markets for alternative crops. We are also looking at the compatibility of these alternative crops to Zimbabwean climate and Zimbabwean situations. We are also looking at an alternative that has also local demand, like what Rudo rightfully said. We cannot grow chia 100% for export without having a basis, like a basic local demand, because that local demand is the one which can actually push and propel exports. So I can say we have the markets, we've got compatibility with ecological conditions. We are also looking at competition with tobacco enterprises. We are also looking at exportability of an export crop. And also, we are also looking at something that is easy to grow for a small scale farmer, because we are saying of all the tobacco that is produced in Zimbabwe, more than 80% comes from the small scale farmer. And if anything happens, is the worst to happen to the small scale farmer. The large scale commercial farmer is already diversified, because if you look at them, most of them, if they grow tobacco now, they are actually growing peas for export as we speak. They grow other crops on large scale, 100 hectares of maize, on sugar beans, on soybean, etc. But our main problem is not the commercial farm. Our main problem is the small scale farm. So we are looking at an alternative crop that is not, in terms of capital, that is easy to grow for in terms of technical expertise, in terms of capital, in terms of even legislation, something that is not too taxing on the small scale farm. So I think that's basically.
That's right.
Yeah, sure.
Cleopas, would you like to add anything to that? So we're looking at the characteristics of an alternative crop.
Sure. So like Robert indicated, all those issues, the crop needs to be habituated to our environment, soils, pest and disease. As you see, most of the varieties that are developed, even for maize and so forth, you need to look at those particular elements. How is it performing in the local climate? What are the pest disease pressures? when they look at breeding, those are the main facets that they're looking at. So it is very important to look at those areas. And so you may have seen the drives that are currently there towards those crops that may be suited to the small scale farmer. That has been the focus of our research at the moment. And thanks to headways on chia already, as Rode has indicated, we've also pushed research on hemp. There's a growing body of research and production on hemp, and we've been mandated to look at the research as a Tobacco Research Board. So indeed, the crop has to be centered on small-scale farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm glad you mentioned, Casper, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry about the delay.
No problem. So Casper is joining us. He's with the Zimbabwe Tobacco Association. Maybe not to put you on the spot, let me just go on from this discussion, and then I'll give you a chance to just talk a little bit about ZTA.
Sure.
So I'm glad you mentioned soils, because isn't it that tobacco is grown in pretty infertile, sandy soils, not suited to many crops. So as we look at alternatives, it's maybe not that simple.
So you may be surprised in terms of our germplasm on tobacco. In terms of when we're developing germplasm on tobacco, you will find it growing in 3 main regions. You find it in the east, sometimes even grown on good soils. But we have developed varieties, germplasm that's suited even for areas. Just in the last 3 years, in the last year alone, we are releasing some cultivars that are even suited for environments in marginal areas such as in Blueyo, Matabeleland, in Midlands, and in some areas of Mashingo. So in terms of germplasm development, we are there, but we are also looking at the alternates and alternatives in those particular marginal areas in terms of research. So it's very important to focus and pay attention to climate, soils, pest and disease. Very important.
Thanks, Cleopas. So welcome, Casper.
Thank you.
Zimbabwe Tobacco Association. What's the background of the organization, and who does it represent?
Thank you very much. As I indicated, so sorry for the delay. I got caught up. But anyway, to Zimbabwe Tobacco Association, it's actually a growers association formed in 1928. It's a membership organization, both commercial and small-scale farmers. They actually subscribe to become Zimbabwe Tobacco Association members. As an association, principally to help both commercial farmers and small-scale farmers.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Casper. So Ruda, we've heard a little bit about chia. What's the story behind chia, and why is it that this rather strange sounding crop ended up as being something that is grown in Zimbabwe?
Michael, it's actually a very personal situation how chia began for us, because I had my first child in 2016. And during my pregnancy, I couldn't stand the smell of tobacco, but everybody would console me and say, don't worry, when the baby's here, you'll get over it and then you'll get back to work. The little man came along, but then the smells had gone, but I developed a crisis of conscience. And it came from the realization that my son would ask me tomorrow and say, everyone has got cancer and the trees are gone. Mum, what were you doing? I'm not a manufacturer of cigarettes or anything, but I have been a part of a fantastic industry in Zimbabwe, which has exposed me to the science, the brains, the production, the marketing, the world. It's a tremendous and a beautiful industry, which has done extremely well for Zimbabwe. So at that point in my personal life, I then took the decision to say, for my own person, I felt I was satisfied with the work that I had done in the industry with the opportunities that I was given, but I had to do something to better my footprint. And I was fortunate to be introduced to a gentleman by the name of Edmund Felix Rouse. We became very good friends because his first grandchild was born the same month as my son. And we would meet. He was very accommodating of a new mom who would have baby in tow. So we just kind of understood each other. And Eddie was an environmentalist. I say was, he's late. He passed away some 2 years ago. His dear soul rest in peace. And I shared with Eddie the dilemma that I was going through as an individual, as a person in business, conflicted because the business I ran was an exchange, and the exchange basically brings together your growers, your sellers, and your buyers. Our interests were funded from commissions of the resultant sales of, the growers and the merchants. So if the commission would be high if our growers were presenting good quality crop, and the merchants were happy to pay for it. When the quality was not right, you would see it happen. So I had a very close relationship to our growers. And with that network, I could see the challenges. I couldn't see the growth with our smallholder farmers. I couldn't see the progress, which was apparent on the commercial and the corporate side. Now, post-motherhood, it then dawned on me that no, focus. Once you start doing something which gives you a reward individually. So not bad-mouthing the industry or anything like that, but I think it is important to really jump on the sustainability bandwagon because it's real, guys. Our smallholder farmers are dependent on production of tobacco with the little resources they have, hence their dependency on wood, which unfortunately has a bearing on our forests. I'm sorry, this seems like a long intro to get to where we are. So we shared all of these things with Eddie, the challenges, the soil issues, fertility, and so on. And I said, I'm looking for something which gives them a good return. They don't have a choice to grow other crops typically because they are sandy loam. So tobacco is the best because it wants a bland soil. It wants to be fed in a certain way. So it can't be too rich. It can't be too. So we shared, and Eddie said, fine, let's do some trials. So we did trials for 3 years. That was 2016, 17, and 18. And in those 3 years, we had a fantastic research material. And we felt that we can do something with the chia. We brought in seed from the South Americas. It did very well. What we only needed to make sure was that the chia would be grown with an irrigation situation. That was the only challenge that we found. We felt that it could be rain-fed, it could be done on a dry land, but to do it properly, one does need a reliable water situation. So we did trials. We felt we had a good business case. The production of chia is 130 days. We're talking targeting. We targeted the trials on tobacco farmers. It wasn't a general approach to all farmers. We found that 130 days would give the farmer a return 3 times more what he was getting on tobacco, which was 10 months, an income for once a year. Chia he could potentially do twice a year. This would also be utilizing previous fertilizations from the tobacco crop. It would encourage immediate stalk destruction, which would address issues of pests and diseases. And we've got a nice situation where land, which would typically be lying, doing nothing, is actually working for the farmer at a time where he's got a bit of rain, he's got a bit of water, and it doesn't affect his next production of seedlings or seed or tobacco planting. So that's how the idea came, and we had great results, we had great trials, and then we're like, okay, fine, let's carry on. So it went on with, okay, this seems to be a wonderful thing to save the world, but then it started dawning on us that apart from saving it, we can also do more towards changing it. Hence the business line of the business, which outside of the seed, we talked about the oil extraction, we've talked about the cake. We have since brought in a processing plant, which not only cleans the seed, we have oil extraction units. So we believe in this project because it is viable, firstly, for our farmers. Number two, it is going to give them that backup plan, because I unfortunately believe that as a country, we are dangerously dependent on tobacco income. We are at threat because it's not politically correct anymore. If such a thing as FCTC exists, the curtain can fall down on us at any time. And who's going to be the biggest loser?
FC.
Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which is the anti-tobacco lobby.
Okay.
So, and if 80% of our tobacco is coming from the smallholder farmer, the biggest loser is going to be the smallholder farmer. This is a plan. This is a scenario for our farmers.
So how successful have you been in rolling chia out to smallholder tobacco growers?
The tobacco side we felt would be an immediate win. However, it's been harder because the majority of them are not irrigated. They rely on rainfall. So chia is photoperiodic. It will only flower between March and September. Come March, April, our rains go. And it's at that point that we need the irrigation system or the backup. So whoever is going to grow chia, whomever we roll chia out to, it would be irresponsible of us to do so without confirmation that the person has supplementary water and an irrigation system to manage and ensure that he gets the yield. Remember, we're doing this for yield. Yield is profit. If you're going to just grow a bush on a plant, which doesn't have the right seed pods and the yield, there's no money in it, okay? We're not just growing it for food. It's not a backup to our home situation. We're saying this should give you a little bit more beyond what you're just doing with the tobacco. So the rollout has seen progressive fruition with non-tobacco farmers. Water is one that I mentioned. Number two, we do not encourage our smallholder growers on chia to do big crops. We're saying, do a little patch. Number one, we're going to train you. We're going to teach you about the ethic of producing the chia. We can do it on a mass basis, but where is the appeal? Where is the compliance? When we do a shipment, we need to be able to explain to the T that this batch of chia came from farmer X, whose water source is XYZ, and so on and so on. That's the global gap. But it's very expensive to get certified as a smallholder farmer. But if we can do, many of us, on a small basis, we can now get to points of clustering. Then we can get to scenarios where we can get aggregators who then are able to manage the compliance issue, because on your EU, this is specific to the EU side. They are very, very fussy with regards to food, which is imported into, they do have a quota, they have a very good quota. We've been fortunate to work with POM, the Dutch, and they've opened up that window, but emphasis is continually on what certifications do you have for your crop. Okay. So until then, we work, let us develop the ethic, let us, because anybody can grow chia, but how we need to create a standard, as in the world now has a demand for tobacco coming from Zimbabwe because we have an ethic established. Where did that ethic come from? It came from Kutsaga. They have standards, they have seeds, they have cycles. It's a discipline. So these are the issues that we need to really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruda. So Cleopas, what other crops has Kutsaga done research into?
So we have done research, collaborated with chia, as Ruda has already mentioned, and we are also working on hemp, industrial hemp, and medicinal cannabis. We have done some. We've done some ground. We've covered ground in that, and Dr. Kumrai Mateva here joined here specifically to work on germplasm development. So we have germplasm coming from other countries to test for habituation in Zimbabwe, but we are also running parallel with that. We're also looking for germplasm that's already in Zimbabwe, has been growing in Zimbabwe. That's already habituated, so we can find if there are lines that we can commercialize. So Fimbera is an expert in hemp and has been dropped on specifically for that. So there's growing research in those particular areas because we feel it's also a crop that can fill in the small scale farmers gap should the threat on tobacco coming into effect. So that's an area we're working on. Should we require any further details regarding the agronomy and germplasm already available for industrial hemp, Kumbira is available to assist. Those are the areas we have covered because we are already in the potato value chain. We are already doing seed right from the mini tubers to G4 seed for the market. We are assisting growers. We are also doing sweet potatoes. Like I indicated, we've already churned out around 3 million seedlings just in the past year alone. And in terms of sustainability, we are aware of the issues to do with deforestation. I think I'll touch on that later on. We are actively assisting our growers in terms of establishing woodlots and the sustainability aspects.
Thank you. So looking at the two types of hemp you mentioned, one is medicinal,
yes,
the other industrial.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, medicinal is more of an intensive
sure
type of operation with greenhouses and such. So industrial, is this a field crop?
Industrial is a field crop, yes.
Okay.
It is a field crop.
And are there any barriers to its more widespread adoption?
So for now, if Kumbra, you may want to come in.
So was essentially for your fiber, you've got your grain, you've got what we call the CBD flour, that's essentially going into the pharmaceutical industry. So with regards to barriers to entry, I would say none currently, because what the government and the regulating bodies have done is to make sure that all the necessary paperwork is straightforward with regards to applications for licensing. Everything is straightforward. The pricing, again, it's still maybe towards the high side if you really want to think about it, but it's been progressive legislation to try and address all these concerns so that all those different forms of industrial hemp are easier to essentially start.
So market demand for these different products that come, is it there?
Yeah, so the demand, we look at the export market side of things, but we are also working towards, stimulating the local industries as well. We are essentially looking at the fiber side of things, so industrial hemp for the fiber. We are in detailed discussions with cotton companies, ginneries, and things like that, so that we essentially start discussions around substituting or blending our cotton with industrial hemp, because the environmental value you get for industrial hemp is quite high when you compare it to cotton. When you look at the grain side of things, again, a number of benefits as well, and the CBD flour. The grain, again, we've got players already in place who are also, just like what we just said, cold pressing, producing hemp CBD oil. This is already going into tinctures for rubbing oral. You could take it as an oral solution. It's going into product development, soaps, shampoos, and the like. The cake, again, very high in protein, which is about 25 to 35%. The extraction percentage, again, is quite high, 35 to 40%. So you do have industries that are coming up, looking at the value chain and trying to find where they fit in so that we at least stimulate the local industry.
Okay. And are you seeing much uptake, smallholder farmers?
Yeah, so that we had for, say, 2021, the land that was allocated to industrial hemp, the total land was about 20 hectares, 20.4, somewhere there. So that was for 2021. So 2022, it was around 24, but we've doubled the production in terms of CBD flour or the grain side of things. So the 2021 cycle, we had about maybe 20 something thousand metric tons. 2022 was around 60,000 metric tons. So we still are waiting for the values for this particular season, 2022, 2023. But we already expect that those figures will go up because we've had a decent uptake with regards to farmers filling in the necessary paperwork and farmers joining in the value chain. But the issues at large would be how then do we create an industry, because we just definitely need to stimulate the industry, but then at least it becomes attractive for an export market to say we want material coming from Zimbabwe. But all that groundwork we are currently doing.
Okay. And the marketing modalities, a smallholder produces hemp, having some processing done on farm, but where's he or she going to sell that hemp?
So the Medicines Control Authority of Zimbabwe has been doing is they've already said industrial hemp is alternative medicine. So institutions or companies are free to come up with products, prototype products or finished products, and these can then be tested by the MCAZ and then be put on sale in markets and pharmacies and things like that. So that internal market is essentially there for small scale farmers per se. But we are also looking at the opportunities for export. Switzerland and the Middle East and all these countries are also coming on board. Again, issues would be around the compliance side of things. There are systems available where when a farmer is producing these EU markets, because again, she mentioned it's food, it's medicine. They want that compliance aspect to be super tight. So there are systems in place where farmers can upload specific bits of information so that the end market understands what went into the medicine. And that's how you land decent markets. So we've got farmers who've done exceptionally well. Initially, we had farmers realizing, let's say for the CBD flour, which goes into the pharmaceutical industry, skincare products, we had farmers getting maybe about $10 per kg. But if you then follow these new systems for compliance and you update your markets and they know exactly what they're buying, some are getting away with $80 per kg or about $100 per kg, which is a lot.
And has Zimbabwe developed a hemp handbook?
Good question. So we are the research institute. So we are working on the seed side of things as well, because it's one thing to market it, but if there's no available seed, then we're not going anywhere. So the same success essentially we've had with the elite development of tobacco varieties is what we're also doing with cannabis, whether it's industrial or medicinal. Medicinal, again, happy to say that there's no internal market. It's mostly for export purposes. That's what the government has put down. But for the industrial hemp, there is a local market. So we are definitely creating seed to that extent. And we've already started working on prototype machinery as well, like fiber. Fiber needs decortication to get the two types of fiber. So we are working on equipment that we're able to then showcase to farmers, train farmers, because it's one thing to say grow it, it's another thing to show the actual products and what they're going into. So handbooks are on our list to do. We will also start putting together all these bits and pieces of information. The research that we've done over the years will also be fitted into that so that we come up with comprehensive booklets that people can use for Zimbabwe.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the Tobacco Growers Handbook is recognized as being one of the best in the world, I think. What has TIMB been promoting in the way of diversification, alternatives, and how has the uptake been?
Thank you for that question. Firstly, what we recognized is we need to be an enabler when it comes to alternative crops. So like what Rudo said and my good brother said about compliance, TIMB has worked hard and to date we are now a member of the Global Gap community and we now have in-house registered trainers The objective of that was after realizing that global gap cost in Zimbabwe is way too high. So if we are going to promote alternative crops for export, our small scale farmers are not going to be able to afford it. So that was the background of now saying, how best can we help our farmers? And we came up with that idea of us becoming a member of the community and also having in-house registered trainers. So I'm happy that as of last week, you'll see it in the press very soon. TIMB now has some in-house farm assurers for alternative crops. That means for the small scale farmers, we'll be able to group them into producer groups. Then traceability issues, compliance issues, those will be dealt with in depth. As TIMB, we had also invested much of our energy into market research and development, because at the end of the day, we try to complement each other, especially with the industry and with our sister organization, TRB. And our angle has been, we cannot promote production without a market that will wipe away, that will take that produce. So to date, last year we worked on sesame seed. We just did some pilot procurement just for market development. And there's been much interest from the export market. There are inquiries coming in, a lot of inquiries now coming in for sesame seed. So we chose it. The reason why we went for sesame production was, first of all, it's a drought tolerant crop. Secondly, in terms of capital, with $150 to $200, a farmer can set up a hectare. We also have seen that in terms of market size, the rest of our tobacco farmers, the small scale farmers, if they are all going to grow a hectare each of sesame seed, they're not able to quench the thirst that is out there for sesame seed. So sesame, we have so much interest in sesame seed as TIMB. We also have worked with Boga with regards to chia production. I think on the trial phase 2017, 2018, 2019, TIMB was actively involved in the trainings of small scale farmers with regard to small scale farmers. So I can say TIMB, we, in terms of alternative crops, we are standing in as an enabler. We are trying to enable our farmers to be able to produce these alternative crops. The other thing that we did as of last year was a pilot production of seedless watermelon. It's been very long since the last seedless melon was grown in Zimbabwe. But we thought of seedless watermelon after realizing that there is so much interest, like growing production volumes in terms of the watermelons. If you go by the street corner, each street corner, you're seeing a small cart with watermelons. Then we said, we can transfer this skill to seedless watermelon. And I'm glad to say very soon, Charter Seeds will be having some few days on some trainings on seedless watermelon, because we produced on record the largest seedless watermelon in the region. And as you know, Charter Seeds is a distributor of Stark Areas of South Africa. Stark Areas was about to phase out the production of seedless watermelon because it's not doing well in South Africa. But after realizing that it's doing well in Zimbabwean condition, they are reconsidering that to say, can we produce more seed for the Zimbabwean market so that we can export? We managed to export the seed. We're doing the pilot for the Middle East market, and we managed to send the samples to the Middle East that they were happy with the seedless watermelon. So we are much on the market development and market research side, and enabling that. And on sesame, just one last thing. The major limiting thing that we discovered is there is no seed in Zimbabwe. And you see these farmers are using retained seed. And this retained seed, if you look at it, it's not pure. It's mixed seed, black and white sesame. And the market, on the other hand, wants the white sesame. seed. So there's so much need for work on value addition, like separation of seed, black and white sesame. We also realize that there is also a very huge jump in terms of value when you look at raw sesame and dehulled sesame. Is it dehuling or dehusked sesame? Because if you look at it, it's almost 150% in terms of value, a jump in value. By simply dehusking or removing that outer shell, the value jumps by almost 150 to 200% in terms of value. And the market is there for that kind of seed. So this is what TIMB has been doing, but the main project now is Global Gap. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert. So Casper, what is the demand for these alternative crops amongst smallholder members of the association? So when I think of a tobacco farmer, they're very specialized, and they love their crop. They love tobacco.
True.
Are they now going to replace part of that with an alternative crop? What's the likelihood of that? Are they going to sort of jump in into some alternative? What's the feeling that you have amongst members?
Quite a difficult question, but anyway, you find that smallholder farmers, in most cases, they are actually involved in tobacco farming, and tobacco farming to smallholder farmers have been very lucrative. Lucrative in the sense that it has actually managed to transform the livelihoods of tobacco farmers. If you go in the rural areas, you see that they built nice houses, brick and mortar, and you can actually see that some of them have got bought trucks, lorries to ferry their produce and even for transporting each other. So in terms of the market, tobacco has got a ready market that the farmer knows that if he produce something, he will actually be able to get something. But when you talk of alternatives, it's quite a complex issue. It's not easy because alternatives. You look at the market. Is there a ready market for the smallholder farmer? And if you look at these other crops, groundnuts, and so on, the market has not been, the ready market has not been there. So it becomes very difficult now for farmers to think of alternatives. Also looking at the investment that they would have actually done. So alternatives. There are so many things. You look at the climatic conditions. You look at the market that I was actually saying. Is it readily available that the farmer will be able to produce and able to sell that product? So those are the challenges that are mainly affecting. Let me not say even commercial farmers and even small scale farmers. That are the challenges that they face. There is no real ready market in Zimbabwe to be honest. Like what tobacco does. So that's why you find even if tobacco is very expensive to grow, the farmers will always switch to tobacco. But these alternatives, I know they might come in a sense of rotation. In a sense of rotation that, one might be able, could not actually continuously grow tobacco. So there is need to have rotation. If you grow tobacco, you need to grow maize, you need to grow beans, and etc. So that's where it actually comes in now. Unless if there is a crop that actually offers a very good and lucrative market and you know, the information is available to the farmers to say, this is how the crop is actually grown and etc. I'm hearing of these hams and etc. cannibals. It's not a bad idea, but you find this will actually take time, and this information, if you look out there to the farmers, is actually not available to to the farmers. Most of them they don't know even about cannabis, right? Maybe commercial farmers actually do, but as I've indicated, the markets and also the costs of actually growing those crops are actually inhibiting. So in short, I can actually say the challenges are on the markets and also on the availability of information of growing those alternative crops. And also, you know, the farmers would have actually invested a lot of sort of infrastructure, and would they be able to actually to invest in the new crop? Would there be funding so that maybe those farmers will actually be able to grow that crop adequately, have infrastructure and so on?
Thank you, Casper. I don't know if any of the panelists would like to respond to Casper's thoughts. Ladies first.
Cheers. Uncle Casper, I've known him for what? Geez, a good 17, 18 years.
Sure.
In the tobacco industry. And but what I will say, and respect to you, Baba Casper, and our community of farmers. But I also want to challenge you. You mentioned that there is not enough knowledge of what alternatives there are there. This is a collective effort. So I'm going to challenge you, number one, that when you go back to ZTA, when you have your congresses, in your magazine, Tobacco Today, I am challenging you to spread the word that there are alternatives, and they are. Chia is just one of them. And I'm going to shock you and tell you that chia, it's 130 days, okay? Tobacco is 10 months. Your return on investment on tobacco for a smallholder farmer is perhaps 180 to 360%. For chia, it is 3 times that minimum. On an investment of $450 a hectare, you will make 10 times that in 130 days. That is chia, for example. TRB knows that. TIND knows that. These are the results we got in our trials. Doctor will also tell you that the benefits of chia help to address issues like nematodes. Did you know that? It goes towards revitalization of our soils. So this is about best practice and sustainability. So all due respect to our wonderful farmers, this is not just about, okay, yes, I need markets, I need money, but I'm going to challenge you in as much as we are investing in R&D, I'm going to challenge you that let our farmers strive to be even better. Let they become even more aggressive. The existence of a market is dependent on 2 particular things, I believe. Number one is critical mass. Zimbabwean tobacco is attractive because we are known to produce a significant crop every year, minimum or averaging 200 million kilos. So the world will come here because we have set the standard, because we have a base. Number 2, issue of security of supply. Can we be relied upon? Is there a source continuous, whether it's big enough or small enough, but we are relied upon. In the issue of is there a market or not, herein where we fight about the existence of the free market or the force and the muscle that the contractors have brought in. So it's not always about is there a market, it's about any farmer is welcome. We have a small division where annually we will contract farmers to produce 2,000 hectares for us. That is us as chia grows, because there is a minimum volume of chia we need to be able to produce on a compliant basis, on a reliable basis. We give them contracts, we give them the support, we give them the training. So there is no investment on the part of the farmer outside of his land and his commitment and his production to what he signs on his contract. And you know what? Life is not fair. Contracts are not made to suit the one party. Unfortunately, it's the one who, you know, it's an environmental issue. But after year 2 or year 3, we would love to see a standalone grower who can export his own chia, but can actually say, I know CGZ, I used to supply them, or I started supplying them. That's our business units are varied. We don't want a monopoly on chia. You're not even going to find chia which is written CGZ in the supermarkets. We supply 4 seasons. Yes, sorry, Michael, but I am going to promote our local Zimbabwean companies. We supply chia to a local company that supports smallholder farmers who produce various crops, garlic, ginger, turmeric. Chia is also in there. So they are there. I'm just saying. So let's work together.
I love your passion.
So thank you, Rudo. So Michael, when we talk tobacco and where we are now, the flavor, the volumes, it was hard work. You talked about 1936, where we've come from. It was a lot of work invested in R&D to come up with the germplasm in the specific styles that are required globally. You know about the Zimbabwean flavor. So that's why we pride on that. It's not going to be overnight that we're going to jump to the alternatives or the alternates. And that's why we're sitting on the pride that we have with our current crop, and we have the comfort of that. So there is a lot of R&D that has to go into all these alternatives. And that's why you see when Kumbi was talking about hemp, it's not an overnight crop that's going to replace, obviously, same as the chia, but there's going to be a lot of investment in R&D. What variety, whatever we come up with, has to be sought after, and that requires money, that requires investment, that requires time. It's not only Kutsaga, it's not only chia growers, it's not only Rudo that's who's going to win. We need to come together. Everyone needs to come to the party. Private players need to come to the party. It could take Kutsaga possibly 5 years to develop a very good variety of hemp. But if players would come on board to, when we come together to come up with a very good variety, we could very well be sitting and priding on a very good variety in a few years' time, just as we are doing with tobacco. So we are on it as Kutsaga, but we welcome everyone on board, particularly the private players, to come and assist. Yes, we have the tobacco value chain transformation strategy and thematic areas working specifically on that, but there are funding issues. And so we welcome everyone to come on board. And one day, certainly we'll have the safety and the risk of tobacco going. We'll erase it in no time if everyone comes on board.
So we heard Robert talking quite passionately about sesame. Is there any program at Kutsaga on sesame?
So not currently, but we work together. So they have already shown sort of a proof of concept in terms of markets and all that. So we then get vested. We are working together. We actually had some meetings in our thematic areas to start looking for seed around sesame, around. We've already done work, like Rude said, in terms of chia. What are its benefits to pest and disease? If you're talking about tobacco, one of the main problems, nematodes. In most countries, go to Italy, go to Japan, they know very well that the backbone of the Zimbabwean variety is resistant to nematodes. And so it's very important that we do that. So yes, we will be looking at sesame in the same lines that we're looking at, same veins that we're looking at hemp, in the same veins that we've collaborated on chia. So we have the capacity, we have the expertise, we have the human resource We may lack in machines and funding, but even in terms of machines, he will tell you we have a state-of-art laboratory at Kutsaga that does cannabinoids, and we have worked with Chia in the same vein. So we welcome colleagues in the private sector, particularly, so that we walk on the same road. We will quickly arrive if we do that.
Thank you. Thanks, Cleophas. I haven't managed to get through all of our sort of questions that I'd planned, but in the interest of time, we sort of advertised a closing time of 4 o'clock. I'd just like to give each of the panelists an opportunity, maybe just to say a few words. Rudolph?
Well done on we need more of these. We need more sessions like this. For the message to get to everybody, we've got to be talking and continuously talking. I'll probably touch on countries like Mauritius or even the United Arab Emirates. These are countries that were dependent on oil. Mauritius was sugar. Mauritius right now has got one of the best hotel and tourists.
Yeah.
They transitioned from a sugarcane dependent economy to one that is more sustainable and a broader attraction. It has attracted a wider consumer. Who would have known that a desert which was just there for oil is now home to the whole world as an investor's base? Zimbabwe has an opportunity to also create another footprint, leveraging off the Tobacco Foundation. We've done extremely well, and I think you know, for we're not necessarily as celebrated as I think we should be, but I think we've matured enough to move to the next level. We need to transform. We need to rebirth, but taking advantage of the wonderful work that we've done and the tremendous knowledge that we've learned from this sector, this cropping.
It's a fantastic foundation. Thanks, Rudolph.
That's what I think.
Casper, any final thoughts?
Thank you very much. I think these discussions are actually very important, as Rudo has actually said. But from a farmer's perspective, I would like to highlight that the issue of market, which I have actually said, is actually very important, and also the issue of switching to alternatives will actually happen gradually, depending on what the farmers would actually see the value of that particular crop. That maybe that particular new crop that will come into the market. From first, could I say, first the alternatives will actually not succeed, because you find that, as I have actually highlighted, that the farmer would have actually invested and etc. So alternatives are important, but we need to look at them holistically, and I understand, therapy, they do research, and all those alternatives should actually be researched very well, information provided to the farmer on how to grow those alternatives, and also the markets, that information being provided to the farmer. You will find that the changes will actually happen naturally.
Thank you. Maybe they could be helped along, as Rudo mentioned earlier, through some sort of proactive activity by the association, maybe a collaboration with Kutsaga on off-station demonstrations amongst the grower areas and that sort of thing. Cleophas, any final thoughts?
Thank you, Michael. So in line with that, our main client is the farmer. and we work hand in glove. So while we are tobacco, while we're still talking about tobacco, we're doing it sustainably. We are pushing that. So while you're talking about outgrower schemes, we're looking at some farmers' fields. We do have a very active program that looks at those satellite farmers and how they're doing. Are they growing sustainably? Do they have small plots of gum trees? Are they keeping their indigenous trees in place? Chemicals, how are they doing on chemicals, on curing, child labor? And we run a very good program called the TIPS program that actually goes in with awards. And we would like to translate that gradually as we go to alternative crops. So we are alive to that as part of our social corporate responsibility around Easter. I'm sure you would have seen we changed around 600,000 gum seedlings to the public, and annually we do 1 million to the public. And so we are sustainable while we are in tobacco, but we are cognizant of where we are going, that there is a threat. So we are together with the industry, with our colleagues in terms of working on alternatives.
Thanks, Cleopas. So Robert was the instigator of this meeting. TIMB is a member of the Market Linkage Association, and he last year requested that we have a look at this particular topic. Any sort of final thoughts, Robert, before I open to the floor?
Well, there isn't much to say, but what I can only say is sometimes what is not known may appear impossible. I'm basing this notion on the fact that in 2009, we were exporting around 90 million kilograms. And in 2021, we are sitting at 187 million kilograms of tobacco. That's effort to do with market development. So I'm just saying, with any alternatives or an alternate, if enough resources are channeled to develop and research on markets are there, but the question is on compliance. So when I look at our industry, it's very organized. We have the resource, we have the skill, we have what it takes to develop a sustainable alternative crop or industry, something. Because when you look at it, for example, sesame, one of the clients requires about 12,000 metric tons per month. So I'm just saying this is massive. And if our farmers are going to tap into that, it's not even, we're talking of almost the same production cycle as chia. So we are saying TIMB is pushing for that, not because we are saying we want to erase tobacco, no. Tobacco is there, is sustaining the economy. But we are saying in the case of the West, what are we going to depend upon? So we are creating these safety nets. These are safety nets we are trying to create for our farmers. So we cannot say these farmers they don't know and they don't want. It's because perhaps we have not yet gone with the information from a regulator point of view. So we are saying it's not their fault not to know some of these developments, because most of them, they are at research stage. I cannot go to farmers and say, farmers grow groundnuts. I make a fool out of myself, because they will ask me, where are we going to put the groundnuts? So the first things first, where are we going to put the groundnuts to? Then when we get it, then we go to the farmers. So it's not like what you said, the farmers are not in the know. I understand it, because we cannot go to the farmers without something that is tangible. So I think that's basically it. And to close up, this thing, we are talking of more than 150,000 growers, and more than half of the population of Zimbabwe depending on the crop. So it's a thing that we need to collaborate, development world, private sector players, us as the government, the policymakers, just collaborating to make sure that our industry is sustainable. If tobacco goes, we have to have something else. Bangladesh now depends on jute. You know, it's $1 billion industry as we speak right now. It was not transformed overnight. They shifted from someone, and now they're talking of jute industry. It's a very strong industry as we speak in Bangladesh. So we can do it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Robert.
Sure.
Any questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I was in Delhi for too long. My name is Diego from Vantage 8. Firstly, I just want to congratulate the industry, the private sector. I think the level of openness that was there being committed, both of the level of commitment that they are putting in to find an alternative for tobacco is quite impressive. Thank you so much for that. We want as much as possible to collaborate with you. There are quite a number of that we can also think about. I know the convention on tobacco is sort of going to catch up on us very soon as a country. It's good that we come together as everyone to talk about this. Is quite impressive. I was just thinking of a crop called quinoa. This is one crop that we have been researching on for the last 5 years, and we have got the germplasm that can be used to grow the crop massive. And also, this is one crop that could combine the best nutrition, could combine the best adaptation in the country. Generation capacity, almost comparable to tobacco. Of course, tobacco remains hard in terms of what the farmer would get. But if you look at quinoa, just a bit of explanation, it's one crop that can be grown. It's at a very low cost, maybe less than $500 per hectare. And expected income from that per hectare of around 3.5, you're looking at 3 to 5 metric tons per hectare, which will translate about 3,500,000. Sorry, 3 to 500, $5,000 per farmer, per hectare per farmer. So it's something that we can also think about. I like the way Buddha was talking about when she spoke about creating another footprint. I think we have an opportunity. I can't remember the name, but I'm facing right now with an opportunity to create this new footprint. We've been into tobacco for quite some time, and I think with this collaborative effort, we should be able to think about other crops. Not only quinoa, we need to come up with a package for farmers. Apart from quinoa, with even mushroom production that can also come in. We can also think about the chia that she was talking about. The groundnuts, we cannot move away from groundnuts. You realize that right now in the country, all these peanuts that you see in the supermarkets is coming from the cities. The nut is coming from Malawi. It means there's just no or low production of groundnuts in the country. It's something that we can also look at. Sesame, of course, that's something. Kalahari melon have been produced in the low-lying areas in Chirenzi, Zambezi Valley, and massive in high volumes. That can also be considered. I'm just trying to think of so many other groups that we can look at, but the most important thing that I'm seeing here is us coming together as stakeholders and collaborate. As DCA or Vantage 8 will be happy to partner with these companies. Please let's talk. Eucalyptus, you spoke about eucalyptus, something that we have seen loss of woodlands in the Zambezi Valley there where tobacco growing is happening. It's a good move, but also not very sustainably, not sustainable in terms of environmental management. This is one of the trees that is going also to destroy our environment. We also need to look at that. And that also comes from our research and development that we need to be doing. I think I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Diego, thanks. So some good alternatives there. The Young Church has been working on quinoa for quite some and some good results to share. Thanks, Diego. At the back, I saw a hand, Barbara.
Are the smallholder farmers themselves concerned about the dwindling supply of timber for curing?
Who's the question addressed to, Barbara?
Think of that.
Would anyone like to take that question?
Yeah, what I can say is what is a common resource? And you look, you see the problem with the common resource. There is no proper management in terms of how to manage it. And these small scale farmers we're talking about, previously, they were not very much concerned about whether these forests are being depleted. But the truth is now dawning to them. Go to places like Magunje now. Farmers are traveling a distance of about 25 kilometers to get firewood. So it's something that is now dawning to them to say, this aspect to do with forest, we need to conserve more. No wonder why you see, in as much as eucalyptus are not as sustainable as we would want, you see the uptake and the planting of eucalyptus is also on the rise, because these farmers, they have nowhere now to go. But as an industry, we are saying we do not have to be reactive, like what you're doing for forest, because now the forests are already depleted, and we are now trying to plant the trees and all that and stuff. So that's why we are now coming up with these alternatives in time to say, can we do it phase by phase, so that by the time we say tobacco is normal, we've got something to lean on. So to answer your question, they are slowly getting there, the small scale farmers.
And Cleopas has got a contribution.
So just to add as well, you may be aware that for all those small scale farmers who are contracted, and we've got a crop that's going to be sold to blue chip companies, by 2025, they're supposed to be on exotic tree species. They're supposed to move away from indigenous. So one way or another, they're aware of this, and they feel the tight squeeze. And like I indicated just around Easter, when we flighted that we had 600,000 gum tree seedlings to give away, we were shocked because in 3 days, they were all gone. So there is that appetite by small-scale farmers to start taking that up. But to answer as well, Diego, we not just focus on eucalyptus. We are aware of the issues around eucalyptus, and we're carrying out research on other exotic tree species that could come in, even indigenous. But small-scale farmers, being small-scale farmers, when you put a plantation, they would think that I'm not using my land to its maximum capacity. So we also have trials, agroforestry trials, where they use the land to maximum capacity, the trees plus pastures in between, plus some crops in between, their groundnuts, their sugar beans and things like that. So there is research going on so that we can entice the small-scale farmers to take up putting up plantations and other crops in between. Thank you.
Thanks, Cleopas. And Casper?
I would like to say on the afforestation issue, you find that most of the crop that is being grown by tobacco by smallholder farmers is now under contract. So contract where they sell, like what Cleopas actually said, there's got to be traceability, compliance issue. How was the crop cured? Was it cured using the Musasa tree, or was it cured using exotic trees? So in short, the contractors are actually spreading the information and providing their farmers with gum seedlings. Even us as Tobacco Association, we are also conscientizing our farmers and also making sure that farmers actually plant more trees. You find even the government did put an industry levy, which we call tobacco afforestation levy. So all that is actually to address the afforestation issue. So the smallholder farmers is very aware on the importance and the dwindling of the forest. If they don't take corrective measures, surely they know that they won't be able to produce the crop.
Thank you, Casper. Tony, I don't know if there are any online questions. Barbara?
Also, the awareness is also related to the keenness to adopt crops.
Yeah. On that one, at this point in time, as an industry, we do not have an option rather than enforcing some of these things. Recently, the Tobacco Industry Marketing Board came up with the compliance framework, whereby the each of the merchants or contractors need to comply with certain tenets in that compliance framework. In that framework, there is a sustainability issue. So if you look at most of the contractors now, they actually have some key things that they say to their farmers. If you don't have A, B, C, D, we are not going to support you with inputs. That way, the farmers are actually getting along and planting the trees. And slow by slow, I think like what Dr. Chinya said, we need to also look into some tree species which actually derive benefits to the farmer, so that they don't only think of the gum tree as just a tree to cure tobacco, but maybe we can extract eucalyptus oil from that and stuff, so that the farmer can actually derive meaningful value from that. So it's work that we need to collaborate on.
So I had a discussion earlier with one of our members who is not here today, and he noticed that a lot of the smallholders are using their money earned from tobacco to buy cattle, and he was wondering, would not growing sort of legumes be a good option in order to intensify on cattle?
Yes, in terms of diversification going into legumes,
Mm.
we are advocating when we advising our farmers. We actually advocating for those kinds of crops that also add back to the soil, that rehabilitate the soil, because soil health is very important to us. So yes, it is an important area. And I think in a few months' time, if you are going to visit Kutsaga, you will see that we have a model 6-hectare plot where we think if farmers can come and look at and take up, just as the Brazilians have done. If you go to Brazil, I think these are very strong systems there. So we're trying to push our farmers slowly. If they come and see it in play, in real life, then it's easier for them to uptake and go and practice. And we will then replicate this across all the growing areas where you do your sugar beans there, you have your cows, you have your goats, you have your plantation, eucalyptus, you have indigenous, and your agroforestry going on. So, and other crops, diversification, the cheers that we're talking about, and hemp, they need to be there. The farmers need to see them growing on that 6 hectares for them to take them up. So we are actively working on that.
Great, thanks, Cleopas. I think there's a question. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My question is, I think it's very important that the farmer is able to get input support as well as a ready market. Very key to jive. But in terms of the return that you mentioned, that 3 times that, I think I wanted more clarity there. So sort of like go around a bit there, just to put my question in perspective. If you are going to invest $3,000 per hectare and expect to get something like 9,000, that's a return of 200% per dollar invested, isn't it? But if you are going to suppose for share, I didn't get the figures. If you are investing $500, it means that for 3,000 you will need 6 hectares. That's just an arbitrary figure which I'm giving. Yeah? So if you are then going to need 6 hectares to that investment will require 6 hectares. Maybe in terms of practicability of it, it may not be practicable because maybe you don't have things like the harvesting equipment. I think it's quite labor intensive to harvest because you harvest and thresh and so on. So what if you can have the figures in terms of what is the investment per hectare, what is the market, and probably also in terms of the sales, how long it's going to take for the farmer to then get his money? Is it cash upon delivery? How long is it going to take? I think those kind of issues, I think will help farmers.
Should I respond?
Yeah, please respond.
Thank you. And I will state to you that we create an outgrower scheme within our business unit. And the figures that I particularly mentioned, one model which applies to smallholder farmers. Your smallholder farmers' investment on chia per hectare for us is approximately anything between $370 and $450 on a hectare. The cost component is really a labor issue because there is absolutely no mechanization within the smallholder model. We have a different cost of production template for our commercial operations, where you have planters, you have a mechanization issue, there is harvesting involved, etc., etc. So we have very different models specific to the client that we are dealing with. Your return or your sales. So we would enter into a contract with the farmer fully aware on what it will cost him. What is the cost of his land prep? What is the cost of planting? What will be the cost of weeding? Because the weeding is manual. We do not apply chemicals in the management of weeds on our chia plants. We are very, very strict on that. So you would weed approximately twice. Thereafter, we are hand harvesting on smallholder production. Upon harvesting, we are threshing. Everything is manual, hence the costing of up to $400 odd a hectare. Now, having said that, with the smallholder, this is a very specific, it is to the T. And I say anything between 370, where we had costed 450 in our trials. We had demographics of farmers that did it for as little as 370. And the ones that did it for as little as 370, their yields jumped from 2.8 to 3.5 tons on a hectare. We pay between 700 and 1,100 a ton. So if 1 ton is giving you the maximum payout of 1,100, okay, 1 ton, and your yield is 3 tons, that's 3,300. Your investment was on 450 in 130 days. Have I explained to you?
Yeah, thank you very much for that explanation. I think it also explains probably why the uptake amongst tobacco farmers has not been as good as among non-tobacco farmers. Because like I'm saying, if you are going to have it, it can be more 1 hectare of tobacco. It makes sense for you. So in terms of the opportunity cost, in terms of the land, tobacco is paying more.
Maybe we would need to have a one-on-one and a little bit of coffee, because from my training and exposure, I'm a little bit worried if a farmer needs 6 hectares to be able to produce. In our schooling, we would expect a farmer to produce anything between 2.6 and 4,000 kgs a hectare. So if you're doing less than that, you're not farming properly. So
no, actually, I was talking of the investment.
On
the investment, the equivalent in terms of hectare that you need for that investment.
Okay, well, we don't talk in terms of hectarage. We talk in terms of yield. So maybe that's why I said I'd love to have a tea, a coffee, or a drink. As I've explained one template to you in detail. And the question is, this template on 1 hectare in comparison to what specifically, because you're mixing, I'm not quite clear, because in tobacco, I believe we have 3 categories. We have small scale, we have medium scale, we have commercial. Your commercial farmers need as much as 12,000 US, between 12 and 15,000 US dollars to produce 1 hectare of tobacco, right? And it can be as little as 6 to 7,000. So there are variables in there. So I think we really need to sit down and understand the models, the templates, and the demographics at play. But specific to our smallholder template as CGZ, I'm talking about no input except for labor. We give training, we give seed, we sign the contract, we pay you on delivery, we clean, and we give you a cleaning report. That is what we are offering as CHIA, specifically for the farmers we are contracting. I hope I've explained a little bit.
So if it hasn't, have a bilateral after.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to speak to you, I think, after this meeting.
Well, fantastic.
Thank you.
So I'd like to draw things to close. I'll take Elliot's question, and I've got one online, and then you should things.
Thank you so much, Michael, for bringing these gentlemen to the discussion. And for TIB and CHIA, it looks like all some of these solutions are externally driven. And probably we haven't developed our farmers to the extent that they take farming as a business. Because if they are entrepreneurs, some of the things that you're talking about should be coming from the farmers themselves. Yeah. Because as far back as 1994, even before the land reform, the large-scale commercial farmers were starting to look at tobacco as a crop that has reached maturity, that was declining. Mm-hmm. And they started looking at alternatives. But here we have a bunch of farmers who still think that we have a crop that is a market which is growing, but the others have seen that it's declining. And to TIB, you pride yourself in saying we export almost 90% of the crop, and it's exported as a raw product. And when you look at the Asian tigers, they added value. And are you looking at that? Because we are now saying, okay, we want to leave tobacco, but we haven't really benefited from that crop because the value that we are getting, we haven't added value. As TIB, you could be looking at markets where we could sell cigarettes instead of the leaf tobacco.
Yeah, maybe to answer you. Today we have set here to discuss about one of the objectives of the Tobacco Value Chain Transformation Plan. The plan is an ambitious target of 30% of our total production being value-added by 2025. And currently, as I speak now, my colleagues are busy, who are actually mandated with the market research on tobacco. They're actually busy right now, looking and researching on markets to do with value-added tobacco. Our main hindrance on tobacco value addition, like I said before, 5% is consumed local. So if you look at it, if we are going to value add more, what it simply means is if you look at the importing countries, because of the FCTC, the taxes that are levied on importation of finished tobacco are higher than that is of raw tobacco. So it has to be supported by local consumption, of which we are saying the consumption level currently are okay as Zimbabwe. We need to maintain it that way, but we need now to look at weigh the option to see what are the closest markets where we can export, like within Africa. I can give an example of Sudan. It's only unfortunate that they are fighting. They are just fighting now, but it's actually a very good market for our cigarettes. So those are the things that the industry is looking at. And if you go to by Aspindale, GMB Aspindale, you will see before you cross the railway station on your left, there's a very huge investment that is being put by one of our manufacturers, tobacco manufacturers, to value add tobacco. So they're actually putting more emphasis on producing cattle and cigarettes. So to answer your question, as an industry, we are on the drive to make sure that we add value to our tobacco, but we need to carefully structure this.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah.
So the final question, I know this could go on for half a day at least. How applicable is chia, which needs irrigation at the driest time of year, and hemp or cannabis, which needs lights, for average smallholders in practical terms? I mean, are these the solution for smallholders because of in the case of chia, infrastructural, in the case of both crops, infrastructural costs? Are they affordable?
Precisely. speaking specifically for Chia, there is no other investment beyond an irrigation capacity that a farmer needs to utilize in his chia production. It is his investment is his time, his labor, his attention to the crop. We provide the seed. We will assist with the packaging, even logistics and transportation to get it to our seed cleaning facility. So on our smallholder model. So it is low entry. It is user friendly. It's making use of formats during the year that typically may not be doing that. His or her land would not have been working, and it's a return in your pocket.
Thanks, Ron.
Yes.
So for hemp as well, in terms of cost of production, very minimal, but we are aware of the issues around photoperiodism, and which is why we deliberately started looking for germplasm in Zimbabwe. That's already habituated. Okay. So we've been collecting germplasm, we've been evaluating germplasm in summer, looking at to close that gap when it's very close to tobacco. So we're aware of those issues around photoperiodism. And from a research perspective, we are running with that, and we are quite optimistic of some of the lines that we have. I think in the foreseeable future, we'll have some very good cultivars for the country.
Fantastic. What great news. So I think that
Can I just?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we are also, just to be clear, so with regards to industrial, this is essentially being grown out to, right? So existing infrastructure of the farm can essentially be utilized for you to come up with the production of those items, right? So this is the alternatives on the other side. This one definitely indoor export market, right? And again, just to add on to what Dr. Chine had said, we definitely know that most material coming from outside is essentially photoperiod sensitive. This is considered the latitude of where the source material is and where it's coming. So most of those materials will be photoperiod sensitive. So we've got ongoing breeding programs to essentially look at issues like this. But there are other materials that farmers can adopt, which are autoflowers. These ones are essentially using the light regime that we have in the country and go flower start to end with no issues or without having to add infrastructure like lighting and things like that. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Perfect. Thanks, Monique. Great. Thanks to our great panelists. I'll give you a chance just now. To Robert, representing TIB, Cleopas Kutsaga, Zimbabwe Tobacco Association with Casper, and of course, Rudo. I think Rudo would love for you guys to have a look at the display, but you had something else on your...
Yes, it's like I said, I love taking advantage of platforms like this. And I would like to encourage everybody, if you have an opportunity, please check out the Foundations for Farming website. They are our partners in the training of our chia production. And they are a Zimbabwean developed system. And please let us support each other. And they are a magnificent partner and network for exactly what we're talking about: alternatives, organic, sustainability, etc. I just had to share that.
No, that's fantastic. I think we're all familiar with Foundations for Farming here. So that sort of brings us to an end. If we might give a hand to our panelists. Our forum next month, we'll be looking at sort of a buzzword at the moment. Well, there's two buzzwords. One is regenerative agriculture. So that's taking care primarily of the soils, trying to build up soil health to sustain better crops and livestock. The other is agroecology. So two sort of buzzwords, but both moving in the same sort of direction of sustainable agriculture. Thanks very much for attending. Please take some time to network. Oh, Tony, what? Sorry. Okay, thank you. All right, thanks everyone.